Tony Hancock, a name everyone remembers in British comedy, was more than just a funnyman. This documentary looks at the interesting and sad life of Tony Hancock, a man whose comedic genius hid a lot of inner turmoil. We'll go back to his working-class childhood and see how growing up shaped his funny bone and his desire to question how things were. Tony Hancock's comedy was tied to growing up in Birmingham. Born in 1924, Hancock's early life was in a city still recovering from hard times and tough working conditions. In this environment, where jokes were a way to cope and talk about social issues, Hancock's sense of humor started to grow. After World War II, things were tough in Britain for a long time. For a working-class lad like Hancock, entertainment was a way out of boring factory jobs and a society where your class decided your future. The year was 1956. Britain, still recovering from the tough times after the war, was starting to change its culture. What made Hancock's half hour different was that it looked at what the characters were really like inside. Hancock wasn't just funny because of his perfect timing, but because he could show vulnerability, a human side that people really connected with. Hancock's half hour changed British comedy in a big way. Tony Hancock was incredibly funny, able to find humour in everyday things, showing how observant and witty he was. For Hancock, comedy was both a lifesaver and a burden. It was how he talked to people best, a way to connect and understand a world that often felt confusing and overwhelming. Hancock's struggles with depression and drinking were very public, showing how tough fame could be when mental health wasn't talked about openly. Tony Hancock was so funny, not just because of his timing, but because he understood the worries we all have hiding inside. He knew that humour comes from how silly life can be, how we want big things but often have boring lives. Hancock's comedy asked big questions about loneliness, being alone, and finding meaning in a world that doesn't seem to care. His characters, often a bit clumsy and never happy, connected with people who saw themselves in them. His character, Anthony Aloysius St. John Hancock, became a normal guy for a time when everyone was anxious. He always wanted more than his boring life, but his own problems and bad luck always got in the way. Hancock's comedy showed how silly our daily routines and social rules are. He could make anything funny, from waiting in line to being polite, showing how ridiculous we all are. He was brilliant because he made us laugh at ourselves, not in a mean way, but in a way that said, we're all in this together. Hancock's comedy wasn't just jokes. It was a clever way of questioning how society worked. He was good at spotting hypocrisy and showing how silly strict social rules are. His characters, often working-class people trying to get by in a changing world, became champions for the average person, using their wit to challenge the way things were. Hancock often made fun of important people, using jokes to deflate their egos. He knew laughter could be powerful, a way to challenge those in charge and speak for those who couldn't. His humour, while not political, questioned what people believed and celebrated the underdog. Hancock's legacy is that he could make you laugh while making you think. He didn't just want to tear things down, he wanted to explore how societal pressures affect us, how we accept expectations and limit ourselves. His comedy encouraged us to question the world, challenge what we think is true, and accept how silly it all is. One of the best things about Tony Hancock's comedy is that he was always real on and off stage. When other comedians acted tough and larger than life, Hancock showed his flaws. His characters were awkward, insecure, and human. This made him even funnier because people connected with his struggles. His character, Anthony Aloysius St. John Hancock, was a perfect example of this. He was pompous but insecure, ambitious but flawed. He wanted to be liked but messed things up. Underneath it all, he just wanted to connect with people, and that resonated with audiences. Hancock's openness about his depression and drinking problems made him even more real. At a time when mental health was a secret, he helped people understand it better. His story reminds us that being vulnerable isn't weak, it's part of being human. Tony Hancock was a bright star that burned out too soon. His death in 1968 at only 44 shocked everyone. The man who made millions laugh was gone, leaving behind a legacy that was both celebrated and sad. Hancock's death reminded everyone how fragile genius can be and how those in the spotlight often struggle secretly. After he died, people looked at his comedy differently. The laughter was now mixed with sadness, remembering his personal problems and how he died. Some critics focused on the sad parts of his comedy, saying his character's anxieties reflected his own. It's true that his personal struggles influenced his comedy, but it's wrong to say that's all it was. His comedy was about the human condition, and it still speaks to people today. His legacy shouldn't be diminished by his sad ending, but celebrated for its power to entertain, make us think, and remind us that life is precious. Even though he died tragically, Tony Hancock still influences comedy and entertainment. His new way of telling sitcom stories, his willingness to explore complicated themes through humor, and his portrayal of characters with existential anxieties inspired many comedians after him. You can see Hancock's influence everywhere in British comedy, from Monty Python to Larry David. Beyond comedy, Hancock's impact extends to mental health awareness. And even though people didn't talk about mental illness much back then, his struggles with depression and alcoholism helped change that. By being open about his problems, he helped people understand and have compassion for those with similar challenges. Hancock's influence goes beyond entertainment. His characters, with their relatable worries and hopes, still connect with people from all walks of life. His comedy, based on everyday life, reminds us that we can find humor anywhere, even when things are tough. Hancock's legacy shows how powerful laughter is. It connects us, heals us, and helps us understand a world that often feels confusing and absurd. Tony Hancock's story is a sad one, showing how fragile genius can be. His life was a blend of immense talent and deep personal struggles, a combination that often led to his undoing, and how heavy fame can be. His brilliance made millions laugh, bringing joy to countless homes across Britain and beyond. But he hid a deep sadness he couldn't escape. Behind the scenes, Hancock struggled with depression and a sense of inadequacy that fame couldn't cure. Hancock's life and death remind us that success doesn't mean happiness, and that making people laugh can come at a personal cost. In a time when we worship celebrities and place them on pedestals and social media can be cruel, Hancock's story is important. It reminds us to be kind, to show empathy towards those in the limelight, to look past the image public figures present and understand the pressures they face, and see the human beings underneath. Hancock, with all his flaws, should be remembered not just for his comedy, which was groundbreaking and influential, but also for his vulnerability, honesty, and the courage it took to share his struggles with the world, and willingness to show the complexities of being human through his art. Let's remember Tony Hancock not just for the laughter he brought, but also for what his story teaches us about life's fragility, the importance of compassion, and the need to support those who entertain us, and the power of humor to light up even the darkest parts of being human. His brilliance, though cut short, still inspires and entertains, reminding us of the timeless nature of true talent, showing how laughter can last through time, bridging generations and continuing to bring joy to new audiences. Tony Hancock's journey, from a working-class kid in Birmingham, is a testament to the transformative power of comedy. Rising to become one of the top comedians of his time, Hancock's story shows how laughter can change lives and bring people together. He was more than just a comedian. He had a unique ability to understand people and comment on society with a sharp yet compassionate wit. Through his work, he accidentally started a much-needed conversation about mental health long before it was widely discussed. Though his life was tragically short, his legacy continues to inspire and influence, touching the lives of generations of comedians and audiences alike. Hancock's humor was rooted in the everyday, finding comedy in the mundane aspects of life, showing how silly and absurd life can be with his impeccable wit, deep emotion, and perfect timing. His characters, often a bit clumsy and awkward, became relatable symbols of a nation's anxieties and hopes in the post-war era. Through their problems and frustrations, Hancock's characters held up a mirror to society, making us reflect on our own contradictions and the inherent silliness of being human. Hancock changed the landscape of comedy forever. He broke the conventional rules of sitcoms, creating character-driven stories that explored complex themes with humor and heart, paving the way for future generations. His legacy can be seen in the work of many comedians who followed in his footsteps, from the surreal sketches of Monty Python to the dark humor of Ricky Gervais. Hancock's influence extends far beyond the borders of Britain. You can see it in American comedians like Woody Allen and Larry David, who also find humor in the everyday anxieties and absurdities of modern life, much like Hancock did. Hancock's Half Hour, the show that made him a comedy icon, is still a great example of his unique humor. The show was groundbreaking in its approach, blending sharp wit with a deep understanding of human nature. It wasn't just about making people laugh, it was about making them think and feel. The series, with its sharp writing, relatable characters, and willingness to talk about social issues, changed British television and still entertains people today. It tackled themes that were often considered taboo, bringing them into the living rooms of millions. This boldness set it apart from other shows of its time. Hancock's character, Anthony Aloysius St. John Hancock, the lovable but ultimately sad everyman, is one of comedy's most memorable characters. His portrayal was so authentic that viewers couldn't help but see a bit of themselves in him. This connection made the character timeless. But Hancock's story has sad parts too. Behind the scenes, he struggled with personal demons that often overshadowed his professional success. These struggles were a stark contrast to the laughter he brought to so many. His struggles with depression and drinking, lived out publicly, remind us that even famous people have hidden struggles. These issues were not widely discussed at the time, making his openness even more significant. It was a brave move that paved the way for future conversations about mental health. Hancock's openness about his vulnerabilities helped change how we see mental health, making people more understanding and compassionate. His willingness to share his pain made him a pioneer in mental health advocacy, even if he didn't realize it at the time. His story shows how complex we are as humans, reminding us that even behind the biggest laughs, there's often a deeper story. It's a testament to the fact that comedy and tragedy are often two sides of the same coin. Tony Hancock's legacy is complicated. He was a man of many talents, but also many troubles. His career was filled with highs and lows, each contributing to the rich tapestry of his life. He was a comedic genius, a social commentator, a reluctant icon, and a troubled person. His work often reflected his inner turmoil, making it all the more poignant and powerful. His story reminds us that laughter, while a good thing, can't always protect us from sadness. It shows that even those who bring joy to others can be struggling themselves. But Hancock's brilliance, his honesty about his vulnerabilities, and his lasting influence on entertainment mean his legacy will live on, making us laugh, making us think, and reminding us that humor can light up even the hardest parts of being human. His life and work continue to inspire, showing that true greatness often comes with a touch of sadness. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content on the legends of comedy. Thank you for watching.